Welcome to New Brunswick, the land of wildly changing tides and where the moose will try to share the road with you. This week, we're doing some fun touristy things, visiting Hopewell Rocks, and going to 3 yarn stores, including the oldest woolen mill in Canada. Just like last week's video where we went through Nova Scotia, we filmed this one in 2 parts. First, on our way east going out to Newfoundland, and then on our way west going back into the US. So on our way out, we made it a point to stop at some fun roadside attractions, I guess you could say. Something I love so much about this part of Canada is that the road signage is super, super great. So we would just see something like this waterfall, for example, would be on one of the signs on the highway, and we would say, let's go check it out. And it would turn out to be something awesome every single time. Who knew that the world's longest covered bridge is in Heartland, New Brunswick? So this bridge is almost 1,300 feet long, about 391 meters in length, and you couldn't actually drive through it at this time. I think there was some construction going on. Lydia, our van, is too tall anyway, but it was still very cool to come and see it. Oh, my friends, we are not done. We are now going to the world's largest axe. This axe stands 15 meters or 49 feet tall and weighs over 55 tons. After getting our own goofy photos in front of the axe, we did learn that this axe symbolizes the importance of the forest industry in this area. And it's not just an axe, like sat to the side of the road. There was also a beautiful park there, so we took advantage and had a nice walk. So apparently we're gonna go to a yarn store inside a mall. Let's check it out. This is actually not our first experience with a yarn store in a mall. There is one in Tennessee, the Chattanooga Yarn Company. I feel like there is something just so fun and kind of nostalgic about walking through a mall and then going into a yarn store. Plus, there is so much space for the shop. So this is King Woolens and Yarns, and it was our first introduction to a lot of the different yarns we're going to start to see around New Brunswick. Owner Marilyn dyes her own yarn every single summer, so anything that you see and hear from her is almost a one-of-a-kind. So if you see something you like, make sure to get it. This is also when we were introduced to the company Briggs Little, which we would then start to hear about in a lot of the different shops we went to in the Maritimes. Marilyn is a big fan of the Briggs Little yarn and is going to share with us a little bit about the traditions of knitting in New Brunswick. I'm with Marilyn, the owner of King Woolens and Yarns, and we're going to talk about these really cool thrum mittens because they have quite a history.
Yes.
So can you tell us about that?
Thrum mittens were first established in about 1800 in Newfoundland to be used by the fishermen, whalers, and sailors as they went out onto the ocean. They were designed so that the insides wicked away water from their hands so they did not get frostbite or chapped. This is roving, which is prepared wool but not spun into wool yet.
And you made all of these?
Made all the knits. The wool has been provided, the roving has been provided by Briggs Little out in Harvey, New Brunswick, except for this pair, which is merino.
Ooh, interesting.
The roving was merino.
What is this roving?
That is called, it's the Big Country Roving by Briggs Little. It's right over there. So all of my mittens are done with Briggs Little wool. This one is, I dyed myself. This is one of their hand dyes. And so these are their regular in-stock colors. They are great for anyone who's walking around winter outside activities because you will not get frostbite in your hands. They're popular with your skiers, skidooers. I had to make a giant size pair for my late husband so he could snowblow.
Oh my God.
But the wind, first time they get wet, they will shrink up a little bit, tighten up the holes, and then nothing gets through.
That same day, we made the 2-hour drive from Fredericton, where King Woolens and Yarns is, to Moncton, where we went to stitch night at 3 Bags Full. The number of people that told us we had to go to 3 Bags Full is wild in comments and messages and emails, and we're really glad that things just lined up nicely for us to be there for their regular weekly stitch night. They've got lots of beautiful yarns like Riverside Studio out of Quebec. They also carry Lichen and Lace, who is a New Brunswick dyer. And they even have their own honeybee yarn, which of course I had to get for my blanket. One last fun touristy thing before we time hop into the future. This is Magnetic Hill. Basically, it's a hill where if you drive to the bottom of it and just put your car in neutral, you appear to be going backwards uphill. But not to burst your bubble, it's actually an optical illusion, but it still feels wild. And through the magic of editing, we are back in New Brunswick about 2 weeks later, and we are headed to Hopewell Rocks Provincial Park. This area is a wonder in the Bay of Fundy, and the tides here will change by as much as 46 feet or about 14 meters every 6 hours. On this afternoon that we're visiting, it's high tide, and so all these freestanding rocks that you see, they're appearing to just be in the water. But when we come back tomorrow, we're actually going to get to walk on the ocean floor under some of these rocks. The actual full tide cycle is 6 hours and 13 minutes. So every single day, all throughout the year, the time for high and low tide is slowly changing. This is really unique because in a lot of places around the world, the tide is relatively the same all year long. There may be a low point in the morning and a high point in the evening, roughly around the same time depending on the year. But just like clockwork, every 6 hours and 13 minutes, this is raising all the way up and emptying all the way out. You can actually see the water level because there is seaweed or this some kind of, it looks like grapes, honestly, these little plants everywhere, and that is showing where that water level is. It was a really cool experience to get to walk out here. We got to walk along the shoreline pretty far, and Kent and I were definitely nervous about getting caught up in the tide, but they actually had employees of the park out there to make sure to kind of sweep everyone back in before there was any danger. We have been seeing Briggs Little yarn everywhere, and today we're finally making it to the mill, and it is the oldest mill in Canada. When we arrived at Briggs Little today, we had no idea that we were going to get a tour, let alone from the wife of one of the owners, Leah Little. So we're getting a little impromptu tour, and just bear with us a bit on the audio. Again, we had no clue we were gonna get this thorough of a tour, so I will be filling in with some voiceovers here and there.
All right, so this is where the magic starts. So typically if you were to come for a regular tour when we're open, this is where I would start. Okay. And back in here, there would be 1,000-pound bales of raw wool that would be sitting here. And they're all compressed. They're quite large, but they're compressed. So what happens is those bales are set in front of this machine. This is our washer.
Okay.
So what happens?
Wow.
Yeah. What happens here is the box is filled and then it's fed up through. We have 3 different vats. 2 are for washing and 1 is for rinsing. So the water that's used here is actually the water from across the road. Oh. It's the northeast branch of the Macadavy River.
Okay.
And it's funneled down through into the basement. And all the water that's down here that we use for our processing is that water. Okay. So once it comes through here, at the end of here, there would be a cart. They'll fill the cart up with the washed wool. Mm-hmm. If we're not dyeing it, if we're just drying it, it will go into this machine. And all of our machines down here are heated with a boiler.
Leah and Mike's son, Carl, has his boiler license, so he makes sure everything runs smoothly down here.
This wool will be sent upstairs. It goes through the ductwork.
No way. Like a bank almost. It's like
it sucks it right up. It does.
So cool.
It does.
Wow.
So that's the dry wool. If we're dyeing it, then this is our dye. Yeah.
So it's all of your yarns are dyed in the wool first before.
No. If it's a solid color, we create white yarn, bring it down, and that yarn is hung in these 3 vats and dyed in skein form.
Okay.
If it's a heathered color, then the wool has to be dyed because you're combining different colors of wool and blending them in order to make that heathered color. So this holds 500 pounds.
Wow.
And it's quite magical to see it actually being done. So once the yarn is dyed in those, then it's going to come to this machine.
Oh.
It's actually fed on the other end. So a bundle of our yarn is 20 skeins, which equals 5 pounds. So there would be 20 skeins on each one of these.
Okay.
They're fed into, like I said, to the other end, and then they would come out onto this end dry. And then the gentlemen that work downstairs, they would take those poles off, take the yarn off of them, bundle them into what we call a reeler bundle, and I'll show you that upstairs. And then they would be laid into these carts, and then these carts are fed into the elevator, and they're taken upstairs to get processed into butterfly skeins.
Now we'll head upstairs to where all that fluffy goodness is turned into yarn. Now you may notice that things seem really quiet and very clean around here. That's because the mill gets closed, all the machines get taken apart and cleaned over the summer, which is another reason why we were so surprised and also very grateful to get to tour today.
So it literally comes up through the floor, and the picker man, when it's being blown up, he has to decide which cubicle it's going to go in. So the green handles, actually, you just turn it and it directs it which direction you need it to go.
This is something, never ever seen in my life.
So all of this is used for our blended colors. So that's just raw wool that's been washed and dyed. And then what our picker man does is he'll take, it's literally a recipe, depending on what color, and he'll lay it out on the floor right there. And then he hand bombs it into what we call the picker, and it goes on through the production.
Wow.
So you're blending colors from these like staple, I don't know, that's not the right word.
Well,
you have a set of colors and then
we
you
do.
blend them. Okay.
Yeah, come on out here.
Very
So you see on the walls on the door,
there's
a little cubicle.
There's a guy called the Picker Man who will pull different fibers from the rooms that we just saw and blend them together with 2 to 4 to 6 colors to make the Briggs and Little colorways. Leah said there will be a giant mound of wool on the floor.
So he'll stack this all up, and then he will, pick it up, put it into this hopper.
The hopper is the next step in the process to get the wool ready to be spun into yarn. It has saw-like teeth that are going to start to separate the wool out a little bit more and get rid of even more vegetable matter. After the wool comes out of the hopper, we are going to head into the next room to the carder.
this is the card. So when Pickerman, when he's putting that through, again, it goes through ductwork and it goes through that here.
No.
And when it's every morning, he comes in a little early and has everything blown over so that the ladies that run the card, when they come in, it's all ready. So it's really cool to be able to watch it because it's kind of like a tornado.
Yeah.
When it comes in, it's just spinning around and you can watch it through the windows, and it's kind of magical. It's really neat. Wow. So once that's done, when the ladies come in to start the card, they'll fill the hopper here and it feeds it up over.
This massive carder is in 3 different sections. The first section has a set of teeth that's going to rub back and forth and comb these fibers so that they're all going in the same direction. Once it gets to the middle though, things change.
So it's going to come from here, and it's a nice web. It comes together and it goes up over, and then this machine lays it this way. So it's going in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So this section does one way, and then it comes here and it gets laid the opposite direction, and then it's combed in the opposite direction.
So would that make it a woolen yarn, or?
It's part of the process.
Yeah.
Woolen is more lofty than a worsted, and that's basically the biggest difference. Is it's got more fluff to it.
Yeah.
So once it comes through this card, this machine is usually up closer, and what's happening here is it starts to divide that web into sections. And when it comes onto the end of this machine, these spools are what it goes on. There's usually 1 here, 2 here, 1 here, 2 here. And it's actually producing what we call our country roving. If it's going to be spun into yarn, then this is called the spinning frame.
The spinning frame is going to gently spin that yarn into a 1-ply, which will then become their sport or Durasport base. But if they're not making a 1-ply yarn, the yarn is going to come off of the spinning frame in bobbins and head over to the twister, where it is then spun in the opposite direction to make their multi-ply yarns.
Okay, so the bobbins that come off of the spinning frame, like I said, if it's 2, 3, or 4-ply, they would come here. And depending on how many, so at least 2, or 3 or 4, and then those would be fed up through here, down onto here, and then they're twisted together onto the bobbin.
Now that the yarn is made, we'll get to see where it turns into the beautiful skeins that we see in the yarn shop.
So this machine, what happens here is the bobbins will go up top. So this has already been twisted, goes up through, down here, and then around. So this rotates, and the machine is programmed. It knows how many rotations it needs in order to make the correct yardage for 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on what we're making. So the ladies just put the bobbins on, do that, press their magic button, and it will rotate. When it's done, this is where the yarn is in. Okay. Wow. So this is what we call a reeler bunch. It's 20 skeins, which equals our 5 pounds. Fingers up. All right, so each one of these would be on the reeler. So they would be around this.
Yes.
And the ladies that work here are the ones that tie off. So you'll see there's 1, 2, and then 3 where the knot is. So this is what has to be untied when you want to put this into, into a cake, or if you're winding it into a ball. You have to make sure that you have this untied and follow down to the correct spot in order to unwind those 3.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Otherwise, you'll have a mess. A royal mess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not just any old mess. Yeah. So what they do is there's 20 skeins here. They stop the machine. This actually opens out. They come along and they scoop it up. So there's 19 onto this one hang. And they just do that.
Amazing.
That's the reel event.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So once this is done, this is our stockpile. So
Yes.
what they do at the end of the run, which just happened a couple of weeks ago, we make enough white yarn so that when everyone comes back in September, the gentleman in the basement, our dye tech, he has enough yarn to start dyeing right away.
We are about to see one of the coolest ways I've ever seen a hank of yarn get skeined up. But first I had to ask Leah why these yarns looked different than the ones that we just saw. They're all kind of ramen noodle-like, and that's because these are their one-ply yarns. But you'll see how she's gonna fix it next.
So what they do is they will put that up here, they'll take that one off, and they take every one of these skeins, and this is where it's made into a butterfly skein. So it's hand done. Every single skein is hand done into a butterfly skein here. We have 3 ladies.
Wow.
They also, so once they have done all of this, it goes into the trough. At the end of the trough, this will take it there. This is called our press. They'll take their skeins and they'll line them up 4 across, 5 high, which makes our 20, our 5-pound bundle. And they'll press them, and then they take this and they tie them all off, and then they put them on this cart. So this is stacked high. Take it over to this black label machine, and every single one of our skeins is hand tagged.
Leah was sharing with us that they try to be as sustainable as possible with their packaging. So you already saw the strings tying up the bundles, but then they also use a lot of brown paper packaging. They use burlap sacks to pack up their 50-pound bags.
If you're a puncher, like a rug puncher or anything like that, they'll use the burlap, they'll reuse it for doing that.
And so how long has the mill been here?
So 1857, so 168 years.
Wow.
And it has been on this property the entire time. The old mill was actually just across the water.
Briggs Little also has a lovely storefront right in the very front of their mill. They've got their beautiful yarns, they have these gorgeous woven blankets, and lots of incredible patterns and books. I don't think it's actually possible to see every step of how yarn is made and then not walk out with any yarn, so I will be making myself a sweater out of Briggs Little yarn this winter. Thanks so much for exploring New Brunswick with us. I hope you had a wonderful time. We're continuing this Canadian series next week on Prince Edward Island. And if you enjoyed getting to see a massive mill like Briggs Little, I think you're really gonna like next week as we explore the Fleece and Harmony mini mill. See you in the next one.